Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting of the Newark City Council Finance Committee to order. I want to welcome everyone to an evening at City Hall. I do want to remind folks that we are being recorded by the generosity of the Licking County Computer Society, so all of our meetings are up on our YouTube page. And so we want to thank Mr. Ever for doing that and for coming to these Monday proceedings. We do have 5 items on our agenda for Finance Committee. I'll read the title of each piece of legislation. The administrator will come forward and speak on the legislation, and then we'll open it up for committee members and then to the audience. Our first piece of legislation is consider resolution number 1531, appropriating monies for the municipal corporation, and this is marked as to be expedited. And Mr. Say.
Hello. In regards to 1531, back in November of 2014, I submitted a budget revision with the state of Ohio. What we did was move some money from the personnel account to the general operating expenses account, and what we're trying to do is send the judge and his worker to a specialized training, which is a national training, the National Drug Court Conference training. They've done it before. It's just we had extra money in personnel accounts, so we took that money, moved it to this account. We're just trying to appropriate the money so we can use it. The training's in July. It's state money. It's the city's. There won't be a dollar spent towards this training. It will come from the state of Ohio. So.
Thank you, Mr. Say. Before I take that motion, I do want to make for the record, members present are Mr. Bubb, Mr. Cost, myself, Mr. Johnson is in place of Mr. Marby, and Mrs. Floyd is here. Mr. Bubb made a motion.
Second.
Second, Mrs. Floyd. Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience? All those in favor of moving this on to full council, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Section 2 is a request for an appropriation of the unappropriated balance of the general fund in an amount of $76,032. This is the summer youth program, and I see Ms. Gilks is making her way to the podium.
Yes, the county notified us recently that we are accepted into the summer youth program for this year, and the program is going to be longer than it was in previous years. We're able to start the program in May and go through the end of October, so therefore the amount of money is greater than it has been in the past. 100% of the funds expended for the youth will be reimbursed to the city by the end of the year. Our budget was submitted today for review, so I'm looking forward to our May 1st start.
Motion, Mrs. Floyd. Second, Mr. Cost. And most of these students work with our Parks and Recreation.
That's where we have requested them to be assigned. I mean, other entities perform differently, but yes. Jeff Hotchkiss will be supervising them.
Thank you very much for organizing this. Any further questions from the committee? Questions from the audience? All those in favor of moving this on to full council signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
And could you waive the second reading, then it will be in place by the time the kids start?
Yes. All of these under 1531 are to be expedited. So yes, I will do that. Thank you. Our next section is a request for an appropriation of the unappropriated balance of the general fund in the amount of $23,024.41. I understand it's dealing with some bookkeeping. I see Director Spurgeon making his way to it.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. I will do my very best to explain this and ask our esteemed auditor to bail me out if I mess it up. It's my understanding that we're going to ask you for some monies that are coming through grants that has already been received and appropriated to Division of Police. There will be no change in the bottom dollar on our personnel accounts in the Division of Police to pay some bills. I would ask as you could expedite as a courtesy. It's my understanding those bills are due.
And basically Section 3 and 4 here are dealing with the same issue. That's correct?
Section 4 will make Section 3 possible.
Gotcha. Motion by Mr. Bubb.
Second.
Second, Mrs. Floyd. Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience? All those in favor of moving Section 3 on to full council, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Section 3 is moved on, 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Spurgeon. And is there a motion to move Section 4 on full council?
So moved.
We'll let Mr. Johnson get a second in here since he's visiting us. Motion, Mr. Bub, second, Mr. Johnson. Any questions from the committee regarding this? All those members in favor of moving this on to full council signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. This motion carries 5-0. Okay, thank you. Our next piece of legislation is to consider resolution number 1528, authorizing the mayor of the city of Newark to enter into a community development block grant funded subrecipient agreement with the hereinafter named organizations to carry out activities included within Newark's fiscal year 2015 community development block grant 1-year action plan. And Ms. Gilks is at the podium.
Our consolidated plan and 2015 one-year use of funds was submitted to HUD. I want to get the legislation ready so that when everything's clear with HUD, we can begin our program year. The various subrecipients are listed under Section 1. Behavioral Health Care Partners, Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul, St. Vincent Haven, Coalition of Care. All of those organizations will receive $4,000 to implement their programs such as homeless prevention, emergency homeless shelter, transitional housing for residents of the city of Newark. The next item, E, Newark Development Partners, CIC, $60,000. The next item, Denison University's Garden of Hope, $1,000. Licking County Coalition of Housing Homeless Prevention Program, $4,000. South Newark Civic Association, $1,500. Neighborhood Cleanup Safety Programming. The Works has requested funding for ADA improvements at their main entrance of the museum. The last subrecipient, the Woodlands New Beginnings, we are going to provide a match for one of their state grants through the Department of Safety. Altogether, our subrecipients amount to $87,500, and they've got a great record of performing. And our new subrecipients this year who haven't participated in the past, we expect that they will be performing on the same level as our regulars do. So,
thank you, Ms. Gilks. And for the record, I will be abstaining from this vote. I sit on the Board of Directors for Behavioral Health Partners, and I also sit on the Board of Directors for the South Newark Civic Association. So I will be abstaining from this. Motion by Mrs. Floyd.
Second.
Second, Mr. Cross. Any questions from the committee? Questions from the audience? All those in favor of moving this on to full council, signify by saying aye.
aye.
4 ayes. Any nays? Any abstentions? Aye. 1 abstention. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Ms. Gilks. Let's see. Our next piece of legislation is to consider resolution number 1529, authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to prepare and submit applications to the Ohio Governor's Office of Criminal Justice Services for fiscal year 2015 Edwin Byrne Justice Assistance Grant funding. Ms. Gilks.
This application will be for calendar year 2016. The application will be submitted in May, and Bob Carson and I will be getting together to discuss the different technology needs for the Division of Police.
Motion.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Bubb. Second, Mrs. Floyd. And at this point, you're just submitting the application.
Well, this resolution allows us to submit if we are awarded, accept, and enter into it. We will be requesting a waiver on the match as we have the last several years and have been granted that waiver.
Okay. Any further questions from the committee? Questions from the audience? All those in favor of moving this on to full council, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay. And our next piece of legislation, Consider resolution number 1530, authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to submit an application to the Ohio Department of Public Safety Office for federal fiscal year 2016 Ohio Traffic Safety Grants Programs, Selective Traffic Enforcement Program, STEP, and the Impaired Driving Enforcement Program, IDEP. And Ms. Gilks, that was a mouthful.
Well, Newark is eligible this year. We just found out that, unfortunately, due to our traffic fatalities, we are eligible for another year. So it's good on one hand that we can pay for overtime in areas that we have a significant issue with, and those are State Routes 16, 79, 13, and 21st Street area. The data indicates that we've got an awful lot of reckless driving in those areas, so we want to apply for these 2 traffic grants. We've got prom going on right now with our current traffic grants, so you'll see overtime enforcement in those areas. And we're also gearing up for the Click It or Ticket campaign, which is a statewide campaign for seatbelt usage. Next year, if we are awarded, we will be able to continue what we're currently doing with the overtime.
So basically, this grant is paying for those extra services that our police officers are doing.
Right. They are targeted in those areas, and the thing is, our police officers have to have certain certifications in order to even work the grant, because you have to be trained in the type of equipment used for, measuring DUIs and so forth. So it's an important grant for us to be able to watch those dangerous areas.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, comments from the committee? So motion by Mrs. Floyd. Second, Mr. Cross. Any questions, comments from the audience? All those members in favor of moving this on to full council, signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Gilks. Our last piece of legislation for the Finance Committee is consider resolution number 1537, appropriating monies for the municipal corporation. And we have a appropriation of the unappropriated balance of $670 for the Garfield McKinley Fund in the amount of $448,930. And Mr. Loomis is at the podium.
Yeah, this is appropriating money from a 2012 bond issue for water, wastewater, and stormwater line improvements throughout the city. This particular, money's was appropriated in various places as projects came in. Now this is the last project, so this is kind of collecting all that money that was left in some of these other funds and putting them into the proper funds so that we can do the Wilrich Yorkshire project this year, which is part of our master plan in the Morgan Manor area to replace a lot of those water lines up there. As you may or may not know, those water lines put in the 60s and early 70s have caused us many problems, a lot of leaks up in that area, and so we're replacing that line. This also goes in conjunction with the paving project that they're going to be having this fall on Yorkshire and Wilrich, so we want to get the water line and a little bit of stormwater work done in that area prior to paving the road. So this is just transferring the money so that we can then eventually use that to pay for this project.
Thank you, Mr. Lindbergh. Motion, Mr. Bowe.
Second.
Second, Mrs. Floyd. Any questions, comments from the committee? Questions, comments from the audience? All those in favor of moving this on to full council, signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Loomis. And that concludes the agenda for Finance Committee. Service is next.
Okay, we'll bring the Service Committee meeting to order. Present tonight are myself, Mr. Roletta, Mr. Blake, Mr. Bubb, Mr. Rath. I'd also, before we start, I'd like to thank Mr. Rath for taking over in the last committee meeting when I was gone. I appreciate that very much. Okay, our first piece of legislation is consider resolution number 15-32, authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service of the City of Newark, Ohio, to advertise for bids and enter into contract for the off-site disposal of biosolids from Newark's wastewater treatment plant. Mr. Lemus.
Yeah, this is a contract we bid out every couple years. And this is just authorization for us to advertise for bids and then enter into contract for the beneficial reuse of biosolids as a wastewater plant, unless any of you guys want it.
Motion by Mr. Buck. Second. Second by Mr. Rath. Any questions from the members of the committee? Any questions from the members of the audience? All in favor of moving this on to full council, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Moves on 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. The second resolution is number 15-34, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service of the City of Newark, Ohio, to advertise for bids and enter into contract subject to the appropriation of funds for the Woolwich and Yorkshire Drive Waterline Project. Mr. Loomis again.
Yeah, this is just authorization, again, for the service director to advertise for bids for this project. The design work is about 90% complete, and then we will advertise for bids for this project and hopefully get it done this year. So on a little bit of a time schedule here, but we don't need to expedite it right now. So,
Motion by Mr. Bubb. Second. Second by Mr. Rath. Any questions from the members of the committee? Any questions from other council members or members of the audience? All in favor of moving this on to full council, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That moves on 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Lemus. Consider resolution number 15-36, authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to accept bids and sell certain surplus personal property now owned by the City of Newark, Ohio, and declaring that such property is no longer needed for any municipal purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're going to have a auction on June 6th at Service Complex for a lot of items out of the impound lot. We have 141 vehicles potentially on this sale. I'd like to publicly thank Lou Shoemaker for her work on this. We generally have about 40 or 50 vehicles for sale, and in this auction, it looks like we could have as many as 141. I think so, too.
Make a motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Buck. Second by Mr. Rath. Mr. Roletta, sorry. Any questions from the members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council or the audience? All in favor of moving this on to full council, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Resolution 15-38, authorizing and directing the mayor of the City of Newark to prepare and submit an application to the Ohio Department of Transportation for the 2015 Transportation Alternatives Program to partially fund the Riverview Bike Trail Phase 1 project.
Thank you. Late last year, Jerry Newton from the County Planning Commission approached us with some interest in helping extend the bike path system in the city. And there's a photo that I'm passing around there for you to take a look at. Basically, the section we're talking about here would be from the Ohio Street Bridge over the North Fork of the Licking River to connect that existing path that's on the east side of the bridge to back to the west to South 2nd Street, around the area of the bridge there. And the county has some funding available as the match for the project, and they asked the city if we would be interested in serving as the sponsor of the project to apply for ODOT's Transportation Alternatives Program funds. So we sent in a letter of interest in January to them, and they responded back to us earlier this month and said that they would like for us to fill out a full application. So this piece of legislation that's before you would be part of that application for the funding. It doesn't guarantee that we'll get the funding, but it puts us in the much higher regard anyhow, and allows us to be considered by ODOT. It's a competitive situation for the funds, basically statewide, and if we were funded, the funds would not likely be available until 2018 or 2019, just depending on where ODOT would put that in their budget. And that would work well with us because we're trying to coordinate the project with two other city projects, basically the rehabilitation of the Ohio Street Bridge. With the bridge project, we would try to incorporate additional or reconfiguration of the sidewalk or bike lane on top of the bridge while we're doing that project. And also we are considering project down to do some work to the levees down in the south end to raise the levee the appropriate amount to create to provide flood protection, additional flood protection that would allow several of the properties north of the levee to be taken out of the floodplain down in that area. So all these projects could come together quite nicely if we were awarded, but this is one of the first parts is applying for the funds. Any questions? I'll be glad to try to answer them. And Jeremy sent me an email earlier wanting an idea of where this was taking place. Actually, if we get funded, I have a PowerPoint that I kind of need to clean up a little bit that came from the County Planning Commission. Actually, if you look on LCAT's website, they have a planning document out there discussing the Riverview Bike Trail. So it's already out there in the public. But if we do get funded, I'd be glad to come back and go through that PowerPoint in a little more detail.
Mr. Chair, shouldn't be surprised that I want to talk about the South End, but this is great. I just really think this is exciting, Brian. I mean, we talked about the bike path extending even further along the levee if it's getting done. My question is related to the levee, though. You said that for this potential project, ODOT might give us money in 2018 or 2019. How do you see the timeline on the levee money or levee project and getting raised? How is that?
Well, if we were going to do that, it'll be with stormwater funds, most likely, or if there's some funding available through the Corps of Engineers, we'd have to see how that would play out. Right now, we are at sort of a preliminary design phase of that, and we're ready to submit that to the Corps for their comments. So I would say within the next 6 or 8 months, we'll probably have a little clearer view on when that might happen. But if we're totally local funding that we're doing it, we would want to coordinate it with the bridge project and the possible funding of this and try to do it all at the same time.
Cool. And with the bridge, Mr. Chairman, if the Ohio Street Bridge, would that have a cap on the side to be able to do that bike path on the side? Is that what you're envisioning? Or?
Actually, the lane widths on the bridge are pretty wide right now.
Okay.
We envision, knowing that there's not really ever going to be a tremendous amount of traffic from the dead end of Ohio Street, we envision actually narrowing the travel lanes a little bit to create more pedestrian room on the bridge. So we're going to look over that through the bridge design process.
Well, good work. Thank you for bringing this forward.
Okay.
Any other questions, committee?
I'll make a motion.
Second. Second by Mr. Roletta. Any questions from other council members or any members of the audience? All in favor of moving this on to full council, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Moves on 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Moorhead.
Thank you.
Resolution 15-33, authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to enter into an agreement with specialized legal counsel for the purpose of developing and implementing a program of tax increment financing for the river trails development and surrounding areas. Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, Council voted last week to rezone this area to allow 44 more units to be built in this area. Part of my negotiations with the developer was a one-time fee of $44,000 that I could use either towards getting legal counsel to put a TIF in place in that area, or we could take that $44,000 and deposit it into an account that the engineer currently has. If you move forward on this, our intent here is to TIF the area, which will take a little bit of time and energy and working with a few different entities. But we believe that we can have revenue from the areas off this for about the next 20 years, maybe as much as 30 years, depending on how it's written, probably in the area of $25,000 to $30,000 per year. My intent is not to borrow a bunch of money against that. My intent is to let that money go into the account that's currently open for the developments that are going on there for roadway improvements. So it's a mechanism that's allowed by the state legislature to allow cities to accrue money for roadway improvements.
I'll make a motion. Motion by Mr. Brown. I'll second. Any questions from the members of the committee?
Could you explain this a little bit in detail about how a TIF works exactly?
Yep. There's a certain amount of taxes that are paid on a property. What a TIF does is take a portion of those taxes and reallocate them towards a specific project or area. So those taxes might come from the mental health. It might, as you have your property tax bill, you have your schools, mental health, this, that, and that. So certain entities wouldn't receive their share of those taxes. They would go into a coffer for roadway improvements.
Do those entities have any say as to whether they participate?
The school board does, yes.
And that would be Granville Schools.
That'd be correct. Okay. Your choice here really is to A, accept a one-time payment of $44,000, or B, travel down this TIF road. Those are the simple choices. When we began to negotiate this, Councilman Marby asked that we separate this portion of the negotiation. So that's it. The reason we propose that we move forward with the tax increment financing is we believe that area is in desperate need of improvements, and we believe that this is a mechanism that's allowable by law for cities to accrue dollars for roadway improvements.
And if we have full participation in the TIF, then what will our annual revenues be, roughly?
Roughly $25,000 to $30,000. And it could be for 20 years or 30 years.
And if Granville Schools refuses to participate?
Probably $20,000 a year. And then, Jeff, these are just roundabout numbers.
I understand that.
Numbers that have not been negotiated because obviously we don't have the funding or the legal advice to do that. So it could be lower. Could be lower. Certainly be more than a one-time fee of $44,000.
Other questions? Right.
Yeah, I know we've lost in the past on TIFs. How
Yeah.
could we lose on this?
Well, only if we go and borrow a bunch of money against the income stream, and the development would go belly up. That's how we would lose. There is a successful TIF in town, and there's an unsuccessful TIF in town. But our proposal is not to do that. Our proposal is not to go out and borrow the money and put that at risk.
Mr. Rhodes, what is the extent, what all things can that money be used for?
Just right in that general area for roadway improvements.
Period.
Can't take it somewhere else. Can't put it out on East Main.
I understand. Other things, other than strictly roadway improvements, is that?
Mr. Chair, Director Rhodes, can you So council approves this resolution.
Yes.
And then at that point, do you then enter into a discussion with the school district, or what's sort of the steps that goes to ultimately having?
Once council passes this and then full council passes it, at that point I will get with Connie Kleeman, the developer's attorney. We will get together with a TIF attorney, and then the discussions begin. How we came up with the $44,000 was roughly $1,000 per unit, which is what we felt was fair for condo styles for an impact fee. And that is also roughly the cost of what it'll cost to get a TIF through should we go with a TIF. Therefore, if council says, no, we don't like the idea of the TIF and we don't want that money to accrue year after year, then we'll take a one-time fee which will be deposited with the other funds. So it's kind of an either or. But we did get a nice fee out of the developer for condo-type houses either way. This is just another mechanism to hopefully stretch out a little bit that's allowable by the state legislature. And we also have another commercial development that could come up, and this only applies to commercial developments. We've got another one kind of on the corner there where we rezone those 10 acres on the bend there, and if this is successful, then we would probably look to TIF that area too for roadway improvements for year in and year out. But what we're not proposing is that we go out and we bond the money. What we're proposing is we allow the money to accrue and the engineer will spend it in his professional manner. And that's the difference between the TIFs.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
This will just be with the new housing development.
That is correct.
So
that is correct. And here's the difference too. On the 44 units, that's average $1,000 per unit. Mm-hmm. The first 60 plus units, because that area was already rezoned, I wasn't able to capture anything in terms of a development fee or an impact fee from that because that area was already rezoned. I'm going to TIF all 100 units. That's part of our agreement. That's how we can generate so many dollars. So if we pass on the TIF, then we effectively got nothing for the first 60 plus units because that land was already rezoned in their original rezoning the area when they built the River Road subdivision. So this is a way for me to recapture, or the city to recapture a little bit on those 60 plus units that are already under construction.
Director, could we get I'm a visual person, so could we get a map emailed to us at some point just to...
Yep.
That's why I emailed Brian. I'm a map person like that.
Yeah, no problem. I'll have it to you tomorrow, Jim. I sent it to all members of council, quite frankly.
You mentioned another commercial development going on further east.
Yeah,
the addition. What is that?
Right around the corner, council rezoned that area. It's right there on the bend, where it kind of goes up gradual. They'll have a total of 60 units there. Now, the building plans have not been placed into the city yet for review or anything. But again, we look at those 10 acres. Part of those acres were rezoned. Council's already voted on that, so they can build multifamily units there. But we capped it. What we did is we went back to the density, so they could only build 60 units on that zoning. On that
That's
area.
on River Road?
No, not on River Road. On Cherry Valley Road, on the bend there.
So that's nowhere near this development.
No,
what we're talking about here.
No, it's nowhere near. Yeah, well, it's in the same area, but
it's in a neighborhood.
It's a neighborhood, but you also
said
have
around the bend. I thought you meant.
Well, it is kind of around the bend.
I thought you meant.
You were going down Thornwood.
I thought you meant the intersection of Thornwood and Cherry Valley.
No, this is
River Road.
This is right there on the corner there. And with that development also, if we would intend to TIF that too, if council's amenable to it. And again, we would follow the same pattern of not spending that cash revenue, but we'd like it to accrue and then spend it that way. That way the city's not in any risk. Or if council's not in favor of doing that, we would take a one-time fee off that development too.
So when you when you say that those funds can only be used for road improvements in that area.
That's correct.
So the TIF funds that we collect from the development on Cherry Valley Road.
That would be used in the Cherry Valley Road area.
But they couldn't be used on River Road.
No, I don't believe so. And we can get further clarification when we talk to attorneys. But at first brush, I don't believe it could be. They'd have to be used in the Cherry Valley Road area, the area of the development where the development occurs.
Well, that's okay because they both need attachment.
That's right, and that's why we're looking at other avenues. We can't continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. And that's why we're giving you the choice, one or the other.
Somebody said that was insane at one point in time.
So, Mr. Rhodes, what you're saying, the $44,000, you're saying you're seeing that as, or this TIF in general, as including all of this development, the first part and the second part?
Yes, yeah, we will TIF, and that was our agreement with the developer, that we would be able to TIF the entire area, which I would capture the other 66 units too, which gives me the numbers I spoke to, because those 44 units would not nearly come to those levels. It's the other 66. But if we choose not to do that, what I got was $44,000, roughly $1,000 a unit. Now, you can't do this with a housing development. What you do on a housing development is maybe go to a per lot charge, something like that, in which we would certainly do.
But because this is commercial, we can do this along
That's
the
correct.
lines of being an investment property.
And that's the difference.
Any other questions from the committee?
Mr. Chair, it's just in the title of the resolution, I just have to bring your attention to legal counsel. Is that the correct counsel we want there? I guess I'm looking at the law director. Madam Law Director.
It is. It is.
Okay, that is the kind of counsel we want?
It is.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of a different way.
And again, the developer will be funding that legal counsel with $44,000.
I just thought it was SEL instead of CIL.
The version that I have is SEL.
Oh. Well, the one I have has legal counsel, like city counsel, not legal counsel.
Maybe I got an updated version.
Well, I had to talk to Otto about that.
Clerical problem.
Yeah, I did get the SEL.
Oh, okay. I got it. Well, sorry.
She was testing us.
We're both right.
Oh, I'm glad we got that worked out.
Make a motion to amend.
Are there any other questions? Other council members or members of the audience? All in favor of moving this on to full council signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That moves ahead 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you.
Okay, next, my sheet says, ASME FOP joint presentation regarding the 911 Service Center communication operators issue.
You're right. No, thank you.
Thank you.
How'd that happen?
You could please both give your names.
Yes, sir. My name is Missy Schmidt. Address, Police Department, 39 South 4th Street, Newark, Ohio, 43055.
And I'm Leslie Redmond, also 39 South 4th Street, Newark, Ohio.
I apologize. Give me just a few moments to get
No
this.
problem.
What's going on with time?
It timed out on us, I apologize.
Can someone get the lights for us, please? Thank you.
Is this the login code?
We have the hourglass up at the moment, so it's loading.
Oh, I see. Okay, so. Okay,
Okay, saying it can't establish a connection.
Is there anything else to plug into it? Just the PowerPoint?
Just a PowerPoint.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Can we take a 5-minute recess and visit the restroom while they're
Sure.
working out technical?
Let's take a 5-minute recess while they get
Thank you,
ready.
sir.
Thank you. We have a presentation ready, and as soon as we have the rest of the committee, we'll be ready to start. Thank you for your patience.
And they had to leave. Oh, they got one this time. Oh, well, and then they left.
Yeah, that's great.
Where we're cooking now. Thought we just totally lost control of this for a while.
Yeah, I never did make it this fast, we should make it quick.
I think you're out of luck, Jeff. You're out of luck.
One there, it was occupied.
Are we ready to start?
We're ready when
If
you
we
are.
could dim the lights again so they'll know the show's about to start. If we could bring the lights down a little bit. Can you see, or do we need the lights
I think
down?
they're down.
The switch would be up in the back there, the wall or to the right. Just gotta pick a switch and get to the
No, there you go.
Thank you. Okay, and here we go. Thanks for coming this evening.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, council, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Missy Schmidt. I'm a police dispatcher for the city of Newark. This is Leslie Redmond. She's also a dispatcher for the city of Newark. And thank you for having us here tonight to tell you a little bit about what we do and about our positions here. City of Newark Police Headquarters. This is just a little bit of information about the people in our building. As you can see from the PowerPoint, these are the different positions that we have within our department. As of right now, there's 16 civilians within our department. 8 of those are dispatchers. The building was, as you're aware, was built in 2005. We moved in. Of the police department, $1.8 million was spent for the construction of the radio room. That's where we are staffed 24/7, 365 days a year. There's always a dispatcher on duty in the police department, and buildings always has someone in it. The radio room was originally designed to have 4 workstations, 4 dispatch consoles. At this time, there are 2 of those in use. The third one we utilize for training, things like that. But we do have 4 spots available that can be dispatched from. At one point in time, 2 to 3 years ago, Heath PD actually came to our department and had to utilize one of our extra workstations when their radio room was under construction. So Heath PD also dispatched out of our building with absolutely no disruption of their services to their city. Going down part of it was their officers had to come to us to get their law enforcement paperwork from Leeds. But other than that, there's absolutely no interruption with the City of Heath services. These are a little bit of who we are. As you can see from your PowerPoint, this is a list of our faces and our names and the number of years we have in the police department. Out of all 8 of us, there's over 118 years of experience between 8 people. That averages out, or 7, how many was it? I believe 7 of us have at least 10 years in. So, and last year, 2 of these employees, Leslie being one of them, and Aaron Fisher, were the co-employees for the year 2014, out of every single employee in that police department, including police officers. Chief Starver put, the role that the dispatchers play are oftentimes just as important as what our officers do, and sometimes more. Retired Chief Stephen Starver said that. We do a lot, and we're going to tell you a little bit about it here.
Okay, so first thing I'd like to do is play a phone call that was taken. It's going to be regarding an officer-involved shooting, so if anybody is sensitive and doesn't want to hear this, we'll give you a couple minutes to step outside, but it is going to be somewhat graphic, and this is what we do, and this is real time, and this is how important our jobs are. This is Dispatcher Jackie Traub, who's sitting back here.
They have the weapon is a white male wearing a yellow long-sleeve shirt, jeans, and a mustache. He's supposed to still be inside the residence. You'll have to get the line on hold. I have no idea what it is. Okay. Okay, and his name was Joe? Yeah, that's what I know. Okay, and what is he wearing? Okay. He has on photo of a friend by the name of Joe wearing jeans and a green shirt who's just now leaving the residence. If you encounter him, he does not have the gun.
Now, I'm going to stop that for just a second if you can hear it. As you can see, Jackie's getting the information from the complainant, saying it and giving it right out to the officers. There is no delay. There is no telling a call taker. The call taker types in the computer and the dispatcher airs it. You get that information within seconds. And the officers have that.
Missy, I'm going to be honest with you.
You can't hear it?
I'm plugged up and congested with
Okay.
sinus, but I don't know if anyone can hear.
And I'm trying to hold it up a little bit.
Can anyone hear this? I'm sorry. Can you hear it back there? Good.
Okay.
I'm glad.
Okay. Give me just, I'm sorry, sir. Sir, if you want to hear this afterwards, I'll be more than happy to play it for you at the end.
Thank you.
Okay, who's the other person? Okay, so there's nobody out there with your son now? Okay, so it's just you and your son in the house now? Okay, I've got officers up there. Where is the bedroom that your son is in? Okay, if you come in the door, the front door? Yes. So if you go in the front, just okay, in the front door. Are you in a White House? Okay. Okay, are you able to get out of the house? Okay. Okay. So you're in a walker? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so you're in the living room? Yeah. Okay. What? He's getting ready to leave? Who is that, your son? Okay, so that's your son talking to you? Yes. Okay, what's he saying to you? He went out which door? Okay. You didn't come social complaints about me, he just went out the front door. Okay, I know they're there. Okay. Is that what he told you? Okay. Well, I wanna make sure until I know my officer's out talking to you to make sure everything's okay. What? Okay. Okay. Take a deep breath. Honey, take a deep breath.
Okay. After that, it's the lady screaming, worried about her son. At one point in time, an officer does go in and tell her the son's still alive. But that's what we hear in situations like this. We got to keep on going. I mean, we hear that and then we go to the next call. The officers are on scene dealing with it. Okay. And then that's just one example.
So in 2014, we handled approximately 109,000 incoming phone calls. That's incoming just to the radio room, as well as almost 300,000 radio transmissions. So that's us talking to the officer and the officer talking back to us. Of all of those phone calls, the officers only responded to 34,829. So about 32% of those were calls that required an officer's presence. The rest of the calls were handled or questions answered by the communications operator that was on duty. We also run the LEAD system, which is Law Enforcement Automated Data System. It's used to check for wanted persons, vehicle registration data, criminal history, things like that. We make daily entries into the system. So we enter wanted persons, missing persons, stolen items such as vehicles, guns, license plates, articles. Those have to be validated every month. We have 2 TAC officers, TAC Officer Wes Luce and Assistant TAC Officer April Hunt, that both handle those. We also currently have 342 active warrants that are on file as of today. And those are on file 24/7 for officers or dispatchers to access. We also call out for after hours, so we handle call outs for streets and traffic, water department, public utilities, animal control, coroner's office. We maintain a key holder database for businesses within the city. So if any business owner gives us their information or who to contact should there be an open door or anything, alarm after hours, something like that, where we need to contact a key holder, we maintain that as well. We also have 3 communications operators that are active on the missing persons response team. That's not just for missing kids. We've had to come out for missing elderly persons as well. Anyone that's missing for any reason that is something that we can search for immediately. So they will call them out. We also contact our special operations group, technical crash investigators, canine detectives, or employees that need contacted when someone's arrested on a warrant. So what else do we do? We monitor the video and audio system within the police department. Most recently, we had a communications operator that was able to alert an officer that a fire had been set in one of our interview rooms on Easter Sunday. So they were able to catch that before any type of serious damage occurred. We also monitor for both officer and prisoner safety if someone's brought into the building for testing or have to be placed in our holding facility, something like that. We monitor child-ordered custody exchanges. They oftentimes do that in our lobby. So we have a camera system there. We can contact an officer if need arises for that as well. Licking Memorial Police Department and OSU Police Department also utilize our services. LMH we enter warrants for, as well as their leads and criminal history information. And we also maintain radio contact with LMH if they need to leave their premises there. And OSU contacts us just as needed. And we're also the first contact for mental health. After hours, someone can't reach. We get calls a lot from 211, behavioral health care partners, and we coordinate with them before the officers get there, or oftentimes with the person directly that needs the service before the officer is dispatched. And we handle, for Licking County Municipal Court probation and bailiffs, radio contact. We also document their locations, so if they need assistance while they're out doing something for probation, as well as the bailiff, when he's doing evictions, we document that for him as well. So here you can see roughly the calls broken down. This is just for 2014, but we take in roughly anywhere from 9,000 to 10,000 calls just in the radio room each month. And here's our radio transmissions. You can see towards July, August time, somewhat of a spike there. That's when we switched over to the Marks radios. So it's a little bit more accurate in the way that it's recording incoming and outgoing radio transmissions.
911 calls. 2 weeks ago, there was a little bit of discussion over how 911 calls handled with this in the city. Put it very simple, you call 911, you get transferred to the county 911 center. There's a call taker you'll speak with. That call taker will determine whether you have a medical or a law enforcement emergency. That call taker will then transfer you to the appropriate, if it's law enforcement, to the appropriate law enforcement entity. At that point in time, yeah, they might get a little bit of the story, but they shouldn't get the full story, okay, unless there's medical treatment or medical treatment necessary. At that point in time, that 911 dispatcher will transfer you, using Newark as an example, to us. We will answer that phone. Newark Police, my name, what's the location of your emergency? At that point in time, they'll give us their address, hopefully, and we'll get out from them what they need. Should be no more than a 10-second transfer to us. Okay? At that point in time, if it's a legitimate emergency, I'm playing a call taker and dispatcher both. I get the address, I get the general gist of it, there's domestic, I get 2 officers en route. There is no type in the computer, get it to the dispatcher sends it. I dispatch it right then. Okay? So there is no delay. If it's anything, I mean, and a lot of times it's, if it's something where it's like a robbery, more officers are going than the 2 I send. So I'm getting information from the caller at the same time I'm keeping track of what my officers are doing. If I'm in there with Leslie, for example, she's grabbing the call card, she's filling it out, she's writing down the description, I'm airing the information on the radio. She doesn't say one word, but she's documenting everything. That's how we do it in there. So we always repeat everything so the other person hears it. So that way if another officer doesn't hear it, and I'm on the phone with the caller, she can get on the radio and say, suspect descriptions, whatever. That's pretty much the gist of it. That's pretty much the common sense. County does have a free live CAD that we have access to that tells you wherever their emergency medical personnel are at in the city, or in the county actually, I'm sorry. So.
Also with that, even the sheriff's office within the same building as the 911 center, those 911 call takers do not take law enforcement calls, so they have to transfer those within the department to them. So there's still somewhat of a delay with their calls as well.
Okay. Now, if this were to go through, there's going to be a lot of changes the city of Newark is going to face, citizens of the city of Newark. First and foremost, it's going to be inconvenience for our officers. PD had to come to Newark several times a day to get their printouts and stuff. When I say printouts, that's law enforcement printouts. Set their registrations of the vehicles, criminal histories, anything and everything they could possibly need to file charges. They would have to come over to us to get that. It's going to mean officers are going to be off the street, going back and forth to do bookkeeping work, their paperwork. Another issue is the warrants. Per Lee's policy, the warrants have to have someone there with them at all times. So we have to have easy access to them. So if an officer serves a warrant, they're going to have to come pick the warrant up from us, bring it back, and then take the person to jail. So, missing persons. Leeds has a policy that any and all missing persons under the age of 21 have to be entered within 2 hours of the original phone call. So that means that officer has to get out there, get the report, get it typed up, get it to us to be entered, and at that point in time, we get it in the database. Again, it's an extra step for the officers. Impounds. Citizens driving, whose car is impounded for whatever reason, paperwork has to come pick up the Leeds paperwork from us. They bring the Leeds paperwork, the impound paperwork. We attach the paperwork. They bring it back to the station to be filed with the impound clerk. And a big thing is, right now the dispatchers are there 24/7, have access to the records. If the business hours has to close at 5 o'clock, that means the citizens aren't going to be able to get simple questions answered. Okay, how much is my impound to be to get out tomorrow? I filed a report with an officer this morning. I have additional information to add to it. Or I have a suspect now. But we have to be able to access those reports in order to give the citizens the service they ask for. We do that now, and there's never been a problem with it. Now, how's this going to affect the city employees? A lot. With the loss of 8 dispatchers, citizens are going to lose the knowledge of the city, knowledge of our officers, and more importantly, the knowledge that we have to answer the citizens' questions. We get quite a few calls in the radio room about civil issues. Well, if it's a civil issue, we can advise a person accordingly how to handle that. If it's something where we have to send an officer out, and the officer will spend the drive time to get there, the 5 or 10 minutes with the citizen, and then clearing the call, that's 20 minutes he could be responding to a crime in progress, or on patrol, or a criminal issue. Currently, as of right now, only 1 or 2 current dispatchers are considering applying to the county. Those other 6 are going to exercise their bumping rights or resign altogether, just because there's no desire to go work at the county. Those 6 employees who would exercise their bumping rights could bump into these various departments throughout the city, which could affect the animal control officer, auditors, building, income tax. There's quite a few people that could be affected. And those people, if they have enough seniority, are then going to bump into other positions who can then bump into other positions. So it's going to be a ripple effect. In short, it could be 6, 7 people who were last hired within the city are going to lose their jobs. Those 6 or 7 people may not qualify to become dispatchers at the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, if there's even going to be 6 or 7 positions held open. We just don't know at this point in time. So, as an end result of all this, it's very, very possible that the Sheriff's Office would have dispatchers who don't know the city like we do, don't know the officers, and don't know the citizens. I mean, there's people who call in. I had an example today. This lady called in and gave me her first name, I knew her address, I knew her phone number, I knew her last name, because I talk with her a lot. Well, we have that, and we sat there and chit-chatted a little bit, just because they like that. They like being on a first-name basis with people. And that's what we're here for. Go ahead and take this part.
Current technology, what we currently do is when a call is received, and I'm talking about a non-emergency type call, so it comes in on our regular phone line, we fill out a call card and it gets stamped with the date and time that it's received. We have the ability to put that directly into the current system that we have, but we've been told that right now they want everything on a call record. So we enter a call record, and then later that call record gets entered into a computer system. We have and I apologize that we don't have some pictures with it, but we have slots for each of the cars that are on duty, and they have lights on them. You light up whoever's on duty, and when they're on a call, the card goes in the slot. That's how we keep track of. I'll be honest with you, most of the dispatchers, even though we have that, we all know exactly where our officers are. We can tell you without looking at any cards. That's how we've been trained. We don't rely on a computer system to know where they're at. All of our calls for service go over the radio. The call records that I spoke about earlier go into the OLEAS program. That's the Ohio Law Enforcement Information System. That was something that we received from the state. And officers can either utilize their in-car computers or desktop computers on workstations to complete their reports. So does the current system work without affecting the officer or civilian safety? Absolutely. We've been doing it this way for years. Would a technology upgrade make a difference? No. We've been able to provide great service for the citizens. So some of the proposed technology, what they were looking at was the New World system, and you've probably heard that term before because that's the same software company that the Newark City Auditor's Office uses currently. And below you'll see a list. This is something that that Captain Heron provided to us. It was an estimate on what it would cost to implement the records management system in the police department. So the upfront and one-time fee is $164,405. In addition, there's going to be a maintenance fee every year, $43,004, and then an annual increase each year thereafter of $1,344. The Sheriff's Office has access to both the New World's record management system and the Tiburon system, which is what the 911 center uses also, the CAD system they have there. The CAD system is not installed in any of the cruisers at the Sheriff's Office. They are not using it. They only use the records management system at this time. Once the address is input into the New World system, the call history is downloaded, so the officer could be aware of any previous incidents at that location prior to arriving there. So how do we compare with other agencies? These are just the 911 calls for service. These do not come to our department. This is to the 911 center. And these are calls for service. Just to give you a little bit of clarification, total calls is every call that comes in. A call for service is when someone is actually dispatched. So there is a little bit of a difference there. You'll see the wording a little bit different in each of the slides. So the county fire departments handled 19,416. Newark Fire alone handled 10,211. In total incoming calls by jurisdiction for last year, the Newark Police Department dispatchers handled 109,087 calls. The 911 Center handled 66,397 calls. Sheriff's Office said they could not provide that data. It was unavailable. It's not something that they maintain there. So you can see here, just with the 8 dispatchers that we have, how many more calls, phone calls that we take in each year.
Okay. This is the calls for service. This is when an officer is actually dispatched to a location within the jurisdiction or a fire department. Pretty self-explanatory. Our numbers are just shy of the county. But what the county also does is has a multitude of jurisdictions. Hebron, Buckeye Lake, Johnstown, Alexandria, all those areas. Okay, I'm sorry, I just misspoke. Ours are just slightly higher. Get my numbers confused. So Newark being the largest, you can understand would be just a little bit high. We have a bigger population. So, as Leslie touched on this is the number of dispatchers per agency. We broke this down a little bit with the numbers that we provide. We had a public records request for costs, and as you can see, we're extremely efficient with what we have and how much we paid. I mean, we're almost a third less what Newark Fire is charging. So again, data was requested from the Sheriff's Office for this, and it just wasn't available. This is a biggie. Since 2001, the City of Newark has paid Licking County over $3.5 million to dispatch those costs through Newark Fire. That's City of Newark only, Fire Department, and EMS. Since 2005, they've paid just shy of $2.5 million, only to dispatch fire and EMS. Right now, that's boiling down to $31.34 per Newark Fire call for service, while we do it for half that. And if we were to implement to go to a call or price per call, we don't know the value of the dollar of that. Now, taking that money we just discussed, what if we were to take that back, have Newark dispatchers dispatch county fire, or what's now Newark Fire, dispatch calls? That's money that could be kept in the City of Newark, tax dollar stays in the City of Newark, and it's City of Newark working together. We're able to do this. We've asked for it, and for whatever reason, it just hasn't happened yet. So we're ready and capable and willing to do it. It's just a matter of getting it done. Also, another thing to consider is what happens if a contract's put in place and something happens 3 months, 6 months, a year from now. What happens? There's nothing to fall back on. Okay.
So here's just a quick breakdown. We were given an estimate of annual cost for the dispatchers, communications operators, $442,000. Divide that by 8 employees, that averages about $55,250 per employee. That's including benefits. The amount paid And again, this was an estimate because my understanding is second and fourth quarter invoices were not submitted yet for payment. So this is based on the estimate that we were provided. That's $320,000. If you took out the $160,000 needed for the technology upgrade, that leaves you with $160,000 left. That would be enough to hire 3 additional communications operators the first year if the contract was terminated. Subsequent years, when you're not going to have the $160,000, it would be a $40,000 fee. That would allow you to hire 2 more, so we could staff 5 more communications operators full-time.
And pay for the upgrade.
And which would pay for the upgrade, and it would also keep the current employees that we have in place. So just a quick graph for the last, well, since 2001. As you can see what's being paid for fire and EMS dispatching. One thing also to consider, while City of Newark employees were not granted raises or not asking for pay increases, the county employees were, and we were paying for that. 25% of their total personnel costs for the year. So while the employees here didn't take a raise for quite some time, their employees were still getting raises, and again, we were paying for that. And again, here with the health department, you can see the same thing, changes over time for the amount that was charged for the services. So grant information, what we checked on, there were no grants that the city had applied for technology grants, specifically for the police department, for the communications center. So the money's out there, we just haven't asked for it.
There's a couple other high agencies that have considered this and passed on it. Ashland City recently put through ordinance last week, I believe, to disassociate themselves with their 911 center. Instead, they're going to go work with Worcester because of issues they've had with service to their community. City of Mansfield has also rejected this because of concerns they had, and recently, more locally, City of Heath also rejected this. There's a reason why people are saying no. All we're asking here is what's the big rush. There's money's already budgeted there. There's no lack of work. There's plenty of things to do. Right now, PD has 2 civilian job vacancies that are partially funded. Again, we're not part of the budget committee, but there's possible money could be used there for the technology upgrades. We're respectfully requesting that this matter be tabled so we could do an in-depth analysis of this. Our main concern is the city of Newark, the safety of the citizens. Yeah, we want to keep our jobs, but our first and foremost concern is the city. We don't want to lose this trust that the citizens has for us, who basically just approved the 2 prior safety levies. So, these are things we're just asking you to consider. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you very much for bringing your presentation.
Thank you for having us.
And I believe there's several other people who are here to speak as well when they're called up available.
Before you leave, are there other questions that you want to start with these folks? Other questions out of the audience? Other council members? Yes, sir. If you'd approach the podium, give your name and address.
Dennis Kleiman,
approach the
Washington Street, apartment 410, Newark, Ohio.
Sir, we're going to need you to approach the podium so that we'll be able to have you on the recording. I'm sorry. Your name and address again, sir. I'm sorry.
400 Washington Street, apartment 410, Newark, Ohio.
Your name, sir? I'm sorry.
Dennis Kleinman.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a great concern with all of this, and the fact that the city council even brought it up at all. Here's the problem. When I came to Newark in 2000, the roads weren't getting fixed, but that's the same condition they're in 2015, so nothing's changed. The next thing that happened was the inability of the city to fund snowplow salting for the streets in the city of Newark. I'm sure we all remember this last big snowstorm that we had, and for the first time since I moved to Newark, there were plow trucks out. A wonderful sight. Unfortunately, the only place I saw plowed was East Main and West Main. The rest of the city, unfortunately, got nothing. Now, then the next thing that happened was the city decided to start charging for the fire department. Again, what I'm curious about is what is the city doing for the citizens of this Newark? Apparently very little. Now all of a sudden there's a big move to cancel and destroy the police department, which has functioned fairly well up to now. My question is this: is the city council going to again refuse to be concerned about the needs of the citizens and only try to make themselves look like they're doing something? Or is there actually going to be an effort made to save something that has worked well in the past? My big concern about this is this tale of woe continues to go on. You went to the citizens for a levy for money to pay for the streets, and the citizens didn't give it to you. Did you ever ask why? Did anybody even think to ask why? Well, there's a pretty good reason for that. They're paying taxes and paying taxes and paying taxes. The stuff they're seeing done for them. Now, I was quite enlightened tonight to see about the trails and the parks, and I think that's all good stuff, because the citizens and the kids need places to do stuff. But what concerns me even more is the fact that even though this has failed numerous times in the local area, they brought up 2 examples in Richmond County, and the city of Heath won't go along with it. I'm not even sure why this discussion is continuing to take place. What I see happening again is going to be another case of the city council and the mayor will go along and basically eliminate these jobs and do all of this, and the citizens of Newark will receive how much benefit for it. Does this number look familiar? This is what happened with the fire department money. All these levies that keep getting passed by the citizens, the money gets siphoned off, and instead of being used for what it's supposed to be used for, it's used for many other things. I understand you have a city to run, and I understand that you have to make tough decisions sometimes. But come on, let's start doing something for the citizens. The roads aren't fixed, they're not plowed, they're not salted, and this is an every winter event. It costs money to use the fire department now. Are we going to end up paying even more money to let the county run this? When I lived in Maryland, I saw this same thing going there. Everybody wanted to shift it to the county. Well, three cities in the county where I live chose not to do that. Guess what? Their costs for law enforcement and everything remained approximately the same. Every other city that was involved in this, their expenses continued to go up almost astronomically to support these things because the county did not have it. Do you know they hired, Licking County, Ohio is 10 square miles bigger than Harford County, Maryland was. They have 409 sheriff's deputies. Do you know what their average response time is as of this year? Take a wild guess. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour and a half, what?
I'm afraid I have no idea, sir.
All right. Their average response time is 22 minutes. Are you satisfied to provide 22-minute response time in place of the Newark Police Department, which is there sometimes in less than 5 minutes? Is this a quality improvement for the citizens of Newark? I suspect not. I suspect what's going to happen, right, is Kasich is pushing all of this as an effort to control the counties and the cities even more. There's nothing wrong with the governor trying to push his plans. What is unfortunate about this is that apparently this is being completely ignored. In essence, the same things that have happened for all the stuff. What I want to know is, why is this even an issue? You're not going to save any money. It's going to cost you more money. So what's the advantage to the citizens of Newark? More importantly, what's the advantage to the city council? I see none. In fact, what I'm concerned with is that you're even going forward to even discuss some of this stuff. This is very disparaging. Considering that the City of Newark provides no road repair, the City of Newark provides virtually no salting, sanding, and stuff for the safety of the citizens of Newark, now you're going to take away the only thing that was working well, which is the police and the fire department. You charge for the fire department service. Again, what benefit to the citizens of Newark for all the taxes they pay? Now, we're going to do away with, quick, let's throw away the police department, their 911 response, and all of this. And guess what? The citizens of Newark are now paying all these taxes, and what do they get from the City of Newark? Very little. And it looks like conceivably even less. Now, is this going to change the outcome of this? Who knows? But it is a great deal of concern. And what I want to know is, why does the City Council even continue to think this way based on the past results that they've had? Every council is different, I realize that. Every mayor is different. But it looks like to me there's been a, quote, development of failure mode in the City of Newark. You do things that are related to the citizens with no concern whether the citizens receive an active benefit from your actions. Somebody the other day asked me why businesses weren't relocating to Newark. I said, well, they probably could get a pretty good tax break, because I'm sure the city and the mayor would work something out for them. But the infrastructure sucks, and it's about to suck even worse. The roads aren't plowed. You know, I have friends that live over in Heath. They won't even drive in Newark when the weather gets bad, because they know the roads aren't plowed and there's no salt on any of them. It's just a disaster area. One of these days there'll be a terrible accident, and then the city's going to have to justify why there was nothing done. We all know about the expense that it cost. They showed a very nice graph of the expenses that were being incurred for the fire department to be dispatched by the 911 center. 50% or more. Is that a good bargain for the city? Is it a good bargain for the citizens? I suspect not. See, the whole problem behind this is the citizens been lost. Okay? This kind of discussion should have been had when I first came to Newark in 2000, when they first started cutting stuff, not fixing the roads, not doing anything to keep the roads passable in the wintertime. Now, with an expensive fire department dispatching thing, there should not even be a question. In fact, you should probably take the dispatching of the fire department back from the county and give it to the city. Be cheaper, save money for you. But see, the thing that keeps happening, right, and this is what's so scary in Newark, right, is it goes on and on and on. 14 years ago, the roads weren't being fixed. 14 years later, the roads still aren't being fixed. About 6-8 years ago, well, we can't plow the roads anymore. We can't do salt. We can't do this. We can't do that. Well, guess what it is? 8 or 9 years later, same situation. Still nothing being done, or very little. I did want to compliment the road people for actually coming out and plowing East and West Main. It'd been nice if they plowed some of those other streets that had 8-10 inches or big drifts, but that never happened. We all know it never happened. There's no point in saying that it did. Now, then the fire department started charging money. Well, most of the first mayor under this, he realized that a lot of people weren't going to be able to pay the bill anyhow. So if they couldn't collect in 3 phone calls, they walked away from it. So now exactly what has this stuff done to help the average citizen in Newark? Anything? Anything at all? I'd be happy to hear anybody give me a positive outcome from any of this stuff. I don't think there is one. Now you're going to take away the police department. Oh, we don't need a police department anymore. We'll let the county handle it. Oh, we don't need 911. We'll let the county handle it. Oops, we don't need a fire department. Let's let the county handle it. When do the citizens of Newark get any concern for what they receive for their tax dollars they give you? Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Thank you very much for your comments.
Well, I'm not quite done. Are you willing to let me go on, or do you want to stifle me?
Do you have something new to add to what you've already said, sir?
Yep.
Okay.
Let's take a look at what happened with the combined county city health department less than 4 weeks ago. A friend of mine went to a local restaurant. I'll let that remain anonymous. There was a glove in her soda that she got. Now, the combined county city health department sent a nice man out, and he called her and said, well, this is normal. There you go. That's a combined city-county operation. Okay? Now, next thing that I found kind of interesting was why. So when I called this person asking, he said, well, you can't expect every cup of soda that you get from a restaurant to be perfect. You pay for it. Why aren't you entitled to good performance? Okay. Now let's look a little farther. What is the city of Newark doing to control costs and expenses inside of its own system? Now I realize the water department is a unique operation and they're allowed all kinds of basic non-controls to allow them to function to keep the water flowing. I understand all that. That's not what I'm upset about. I watched a lady for 4.5 hours do nothing. If you look at the video of the water department where they have the payments are made and all of this, you can see a person doing virtually nothing. This person also clocks out earlier than all the rest of the employees. Nice benefit if you can get it. But you see, what I'm concerned about is it seems like to me that the citizens of Newark take it in the shorts all the time, and yet all these other things are occurring. Roads aren't sanded, no plowing, no road repair, fire department costs money to use, and now they were talking about taking the police department, the 911 dispatchers away. What does the city of Newark do for the average citizen? I'll conclude with that because I feel that that is the basic point. What are you doing for the citizens of Newark? All the stuff you talked about tonight, hey, I think it's great that you're going to get money from these people, for these corporations and stuff like that. That's all good stuff. But what does the average citizen see? It got real quiet, didn't it? That's the problem. The average citizen is seeing less and less, and nobody's doing anything about it. Think about that.
Thank you,
Have a nice evening.
Are there other people that want to speak on behalf with the city 911 system? I'm not sure who all we've got here, and I'm not trying to leave anybody out before we move on.
We have a couple representatives of FOP and one from fire.
Okay. State your name and information, sir.
My name is Paul Davis. I'm the president of the local FOP. You need an address?
Sure.
I think it's 255 South 6th Street in Newark.
Okay.
6th and Calburn. I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the timing of this. We weren't ever told anything about this until just a few days before they made their first presentation. And it kind of like struck us as a little odd because no one came down to see what we did. No one came down looking for information. They did nothing. They put on this presentation without ever talking to anybody to see what we actually did. And that kind of concerned me, first of all. because, we there's 69 officers that are in the FOP that have to deal with it, that deal with this stuff all the time. The second thing is when he gave this presentation, since he didn't talk to us, a lot of the things weren't correct. And as you've seen, a lot of the things that they said today were actually different than what he brought up the first time. Some of the things were different. And he probably would have had better information if he actually would have talked to us. And I'm not sure why he didn't come here and talk to us. And I'm kind of going to reiterate what they said. What's the rush? Why are they bringing it here this quickly? Have they did any kind of study to see what this is going to do to the department and how it's going to affect each of the people of the city? A lot of departments, before they made this decision, would do that. They would do a study to see how it's going to impact the citizens, and that wasn't done. And that's not been done to this point. And I think it's important that before you guys make a decision on that, you know all the facts. I think it's very important. I'm sure it would be definitely cost effective because it's going to affect a lot of people here in the city. And another thing they brought up, they talked a lot about, we have these tax levies. And when we went out and asked them to pass this, we guaranteed them a lot of service, different services. And now we're starting to take some of these services away. They're paying extra money for police and fire. And it's just for police and fire. So why are we taking some of the police and fire and trying to move it somewhere else? And you could even tell by some of their stuff that are we really going to save any money? And one of the things that was kind of a scare tactic that I heard when they first talked about this was we're going to need $1 million to bring us up to, the technology's up to where we need to be. $1 million, okay? And that's pretty scary that you're talking about $1 million, but he never told us what we needed, each of the cost things, what we needed $1 million for. We showed you right away that for $160,000, we can get us real close to what the Sheriff's Department, the 911 center does. So I don't know where the other $850,000 is that he's talking about, and I would hope that he will come up and explain himself more. But that information is more of a scare tactic, unless you can prove it and tell me exactly where that's coming from. So, I'm not going to talk for an hour, but I think it's important that the citizens know exactly what they're in for, and exactly when what happens if these dispatchers are moved out. Our dispatchers are very important in the city of Newark. As you've seen by their presentation, there are only 8, and they do the work of 12 people, 13 people. They're unbelievable people. They have our lives in their hands every day, and I think it's important that we keep them there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
How you doing? Good evening, Council. I'm Dave Arndt. I'm the officer coordinator at the Newark Police Department. I'll be real brief. Only thing I'm going to bring out tonight is in the resolution, it's giving permission to the city administration to negotiate and enter into a contract with the county. I'm only asking you guys tonight to slow down, not let them enter into the contract, make them bring the information, the facts back to council for a vote from everyone. The first presentation, we saw nice pictures of the generators, but that doesn't tell us what anything's, how, doesn't answer any questions. No questions have been asked, no questions have been answered. So with that, I just ask you to slow down and not let them enter into an agreement with the county. Thanks. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
We'll get you, bro.
Hello, my name is Mark Emdy. I'm the Vice President of the FOP Lodge 127 in Licking County, 255 South 6th Street. Dispatchers have done a fantastic job. I'm going to give you something really brief, I hope. The whole thing about this is that it's supposed to save time and be more efficient in dispatching between 911 and the agency. That cannot be any farther from the truth, and I'll tell you as of yesterday. I live in the county. and my driveway, and I see a transformer on fire on State Route 586. I call 911. This is at 7:54 p.m. The dispatcher, I said, hey, it's on 586. I know it's in Licking County. He said, we have a lot of calls. If you get any more information, let us know. I have a take-home car. I drove down, tried to at least divert a little bit of traffic because there's a line that runs across the state route. I called the dispatcher back. Said, hey, I have an address for you. It's a shared driveway. There's 2 addresses. I said, do you want me to shut the road down? She said, no, I don't have the authority to tell you to do that. She said, we will send somebody for traffic control. Okay? Fire department shows up. There's nobody else there but 1 truck. I said, hey, I will run down the street. I'll block traffic so you guys can take care of this. The second call I placed 911 was at 7:58. At 8:09, I have not heard one dispatched unit from the sheriff's department. So I called the dispatcher. I said, where are you guys at? Are they coming? I don't have any idea what you're talking about. I said, there's a pole on fire. The fire department's here. Was it an injury crash? I said, no. They just need traffic control. They need somebody to shut the road down. She had no clue. And this is 11 minutes later. So this is supposed to go from 911, who's sitting in the same room, to a county dispatcher. 11 minutes is not that great a time. And not only that, she had no clue what I was talking about. I can email you. I did a records request. I do not know how to put it on disk, but I have the entire file. I can email you every single call that came in that day. If any of you want it, I give it to you after the meeting. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Are there other... Dave, McPherson?
Thank you. Dave McElfresh, President of IFF Local 109. I reside in the city of Newark, 153 North 39th Street. I'm here to speak matters of public safety. That I also rise in solidarity with our brothers and sister workers in AFSCME and FOP in opposing the moving of the police dispatchers to the county. I continue to have great concern of the services we outsource to the county, which we then lose local control but still have to pay the bill. We seem to simply transfer the tax burden from the city to the county but lose our control and ability to manage for the best interest of our citizens, the citizens of Newark, and their employees. Obviously, I have great concern of the loss of more employees, as when it comes to safety, less is not more. Everyone may be aware, it's been mentioned several years ago, the county took over fire and EMS 911 dispatching. I in no way want to criticize the wonderful, important work our current county 911 dispatchers do, or any of the dispatchers at the sheriff's office either. This is not about their work. But there certainly have been and continue to be issues, many related to safety of our members and the citizens we serve. Not only because they are no longer at the fire station, where they used to be, but because they are now administered by the county. This added another level of administration where it's no longer as simple as contacting a city dispatcher or their management to resolve a simple issue, as they are no longer city employees. There's additional administrative process to go through to change something that could be a simple minor change, but could be a matter of life and death for the citizens or our firefighters, or in this case, the police. The current system with our police department works with daily interaction, as you've heard, between our police officers, their dispatchers, and that helps keep them safe to efficiently and effectively serve the citizens of Newark. I believe more careful consideration should be given before any changes are made, and consideration should be first and foremost about the safety of the citizens of Newark, and additionally must consider the impact to the current city employees providing this important service to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McElfresh. Is there anyone else that wants to speak at this point before we move on? Mr. Guthrie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark Guthrie, 1155 Saxony Drive, Newark. And I know that there have been folks here representative of the bargaining units, but something that is has really bothered me on this particular issue, and I've had a couple email exchanges with the safety director about it. And there were positive email exchanges, but I think it's crucial especially before council acts to any significant degree on this, that we give the opportunity for the officers on the street to state their feelings without any fear of retribution whatsoever on this issue. This, to me, is a safety issue. All of you know I complained about this coming to the service committee, okay? I believe it belonged in the safety committee, but it's here. But it is a safety issue when it comes to our citizens, when it comes to our police officers out there who are dealing with these calls as they're coming in. It's just crucial that we focus on this as a safety issue, and I don't know how, as a city council or as an administration, that we can make a sound judgment without allowing the officers who are handling these calls on a daily basis to give their 2 cents worth, whether that be pro or con, on how their function and their safety as a law enforcement officer in the city of Newark could be impacted one way or the other by this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cuthbert. Sir?
My name is Mark Frazier. I live at 20 West North Street, Newark, Ohio. I love the presentation. And so I didn't want to talk at you. I want to talk to you. What technology do you need? Is there anything that can improve, and what grants are you looking for? And there was talk about implementing new car technology that would improve on-site call response, and so officers would be better aware of what was going on in the current situation. So if you'd like to speak to that, I would love to hear it.
Sir, to answer your question, unfortunately, I'm not prepared for that.
Okay.
I am a dispatcher.
Yeah.
I do not have anything to do with the technology. I can tell you that CAD, computer-aided dispatch, has been a dream of ours. Is that something that would be possible in the upgrade? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not in the position with the administration of our department to handle that. Does what we have now work? Yes.
Could it work better?
Absolutely. Okay, it could work. But it's the situation with what the money that we have to spend. Is it technology going to be more important than our jobs? Our people?
Can I have a follow-up question?
I'd appreciate it if our communication could be back and forth between whoever's speaking at the podium and our committee.
Okay, thank you, sir.
If we could possibly do that. Thank you. Do you have another comment you'd like to make?
Yeah, that's okay.
Certainly. Sir, if you come up to the podium, please. No problem. Go for it.
I had a lot of competition before, so no. Yeah, it is. You're a popular guy. With 8 employees,
yes, sir.
You were doing multiple jobs, checking the lobby, handling the radio, incoming people, asking requests, all these items, a lot of multitasking. How do you balance all that workload?
We're good.
Okay. Besides being good. With outdated technology, with 8 people, you have 2 people on duty at a time? Is that
Between noon and 3 a.m.
Yeah, if you could kind of explain your schedule. A number of us had the privilege of coming and going and seeing these folks working, and we went and saw the county folks as well so that we could get a better understanding of how this is being done. If you would be nice enough to kind of explain how you're staffed and scheduled, I would appreciate that.
Sure. We are on duty 7 days a week. Our schedule is comprised of 4 shifts, 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., noon to 10 p.m., 5 p.m. to 3 a.m., and 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. With the exception of the noon to 10 shift, we follow the same hours as our police officers. So in essence, a dispatcher is assigned to a team of officers, patrol officers. During the course of that, between 3 a.m. and 7:30 a.m., there's one dispatcher on duty to handle the calls for the city of Newark. That's considered our downtime when the calls for service aren't as numerous. During that time period, we usually average maybe 5 to 10 calls, if that. And 5 or 6 of those could be school checks, where officers are marking on the school checks. So between the hours of noon to 3 a.m., there's 2 dispatchers on duty.
one word I did not get from you, and again, I apologize. You said they're checking on their
School checks.
School
We have
checks?
officers, yes, we have officers that mark out to just sit in the parking lot of the school or walk around the school to basically make sure the kids are okay and staff's okay.
I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Is that awesome?
We also want to thank you for allowing us to come in and see what you folks do.
We greatly appreciated it. Thank you.
Other questions, comments concerning what we've seen? Okay, thank you. Let's move on. The next resolution that I have is Resolution 15-35, authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service and the Director of Public Safety to negotiate and enter into contract with the Licking County Board of Commissioners and the Licking County Emergency Management Agency, subject to the appropriation of funds for the provision of emergency 911 communications services on behalf of the City of Newark Division of Police. Safety Director Spurgeon.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. 2 weeks ago, we came to this chamber and I laid out a presentation that I really wanted you to see what I've been seeing for the last 4 years. I'm concerned that we're not effectively supporting our people, effectively doing our dispatch services. Now, one thing I will say publicly again is we have great people doing great things. But what I wanted to do is a free flow of information. Go take a tour. Ask the questions. I'm hoping you heard some of the things that you heard tonight during the tours. I also wanted you to see what was going on at the County 911 Center. We are doing great things. With your enhanced support, I believe we can do it more effectively and more efficiently. And the piece before you asks the permission to go negotiate and enter into an agreement with our friends in the county.
Are there any questions from the members of the committee? Safety Director Spurgeon. Are there any questions from other council members or people in the audience for Safety Director Spurgeon?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Hall?
I'm not on the committee, I just have a question. This would come back to City Council for vote, or does this automatically?
The way the legislation is written, we're granting permission to negotiate and enter into contract. If that answers your question.
But it also has to go to council twice and vote it on a second time.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Sir.
Sounds to me like this is a done deal. Council has a resolution to do this no matter what. Now, I'm not questioning the ability of the safety director. I'm not even questioning the ability of the council. I'm just wondering, why did we all bother to come down here tonight since it's already done? You have a council motion to do this no matter what. That's wrong. You've been provided ample information about this, and again, the council is getting ready to make a decision that will affect the citizens of Newark with no concern. So I guess we lose our police department, we lose our 911 dispatchers, we lose all of this. So I just want to know, what does the city of Newark provide as a benefit to the citizens? The roads aren't fixed. They're not plowed and salted. Fire department costs money now. And now you're going to do away with this with one simple motion. If you were truly concerned, which I'm not sure you are, but if you were truly concerned, this should be tabled and public input selected for probably quite a long time. It's my concern with this.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead. Okay.
My name is Lou Shoemaker. I am the president of ASME, Local 2963, and my address is 5140 Chestnut Hills Road, Newark. And I have a concern that a little over 2 weeks ago, we were all here in this room, and a presentation was given by Mr. Spurgeon and several people from the county. And I believe he was directly asked what the goal was to move forward, and there was none. Yet, within 2 weeks, we had to come together. And honestly, this presentation took a lot of time. And you all were invited to come down there. We saw several of your faces. You saw how the system works. I have to ask, what is the hurry? And I don't want to sound mean or nasty, because Bill and I used to work together years ago, but I got to ask, does he work for the county or does he work for the city? Because what I heard here tonight was they're doing good things. We do good things too, and we want an opportunity to fix it. We want to bring those 911 call takers back here. These people have already said they'll train for it. Several of them worked in the city of Heath where they did that exact thing. Heath dispatched their police dispatchers dispatched their 911 calls as well. So several of them here are kind of familiar with that already. If you didn't come down and experience it for yourself, you need to. Okay, so, and I believe Sergeant Davis is very open, and Interim Chief Connell, to anybody coming down. They'll turn the lead system off. You can sit in there. These people are like little machines putting those things in the slots. They don't even have to look. They know where that stuff is. Technology, great. I'd like a bigger diamond ring. Can I afford it? Or do I really need it? No, I think this one will do. Served me very well. And that's what's serving these people well too. These citizens are being served. The public trust is there. I've heard these people counsel citizens so many times. Melissa had a young gentleman several weeks ago that called 911, and he didn't realize what the 911 system was about for true emergencies. She was on the phone with him for 10 minutes counseling. Excellent job. These people are not just people that say, what do you need? We'll send an officer. There's so much knowledge here. 118 years worth of knowledge here. Don't waste it by giving it to the county. We found out in history that ballpark figure they throw out there, well, that's just great because it looks so good. And then with experience in the health department, you found out, well, gee, they're not getting the service. They don't tell you. Nobody polices these contracts y'all put out there. The 911 contract with the county says there is to be a dedicated assigned person to Newark City Fire only. Per their email to us, their public records email to us, there are none. You're not even policing your own contracts. It's free reign. Here you go. We'll give you this money. So I just want everybody to step back. Let's take a look at this as a group. We're all willing, so we don't know why the city is not willing. We have open minds. We may not always agree, but we have open minds, and we're willing to see what we can do to bring us to technology. If this truly is all about technology, which we found out that those CAD system computers aren't even in the cruisers because the technology does not work together. The Tiburon system does not work with the system they have. Okay? So they can stand up here and they can tell you all this good, juicy stuff. But when you see facts, it's not happening. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman. Question, Mr. Spurgeon, and a question, Mr. Grady, if I could. Just from a cost angle right now, what is your hope in, you were to negotiate into a contract, what kind of cost savings just would be your hope? And
I hope that we can save north of $100,000
per year.
Yes.
Okay. Tommy, can I ask a question, Mr. Grady? Sean. Sean, would you be nice enough to speak to the Tiburon system and the cruisers and the compatibility? And
could you introduce yourself first?
Sean Grady, Licking County Emergency Management Director. Actually, I'm the wrong guy to answer that question. You'd have to ask the Sheriff's Office.
Okay.
Somebody here?
Yeah.
Is there someone here at the Sheriff's Office?
Captain Biller.
Thank you, sir.
Kevin Biller from the Sheriff's Office. What's your question?
Yeah, thanks for coming in this evening, sir. I had a question about the Tiburon system, the compatibility with the cruisers. It was brought up earlier. Could you maybe just speak to that?
How it works is we bought all new computer systems and the new RMS, and the CAD and the Tiburon work hand in hand with it. It's just not installed until the fall. That's our deadline drop date. It's all a process. We opened up the center a year ago, and it's just a continuing progression. That's where we're at with it.
So your hope is by the fall it will be
Yes,
compatible? Okay.
yes.
So that would be in all your vehicles, all the vehicles? Sir?
Everything, right.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Mr. Chair, I believe my friend Lou asked me a question, and I'd like to address it.
Absolutely.
I will. What was the plan? Why did we roll this out? You and I are friends. We go a long way back. The plan was for you folks to go tour both these facilities and see what I've been observing for the last 4 years. That was the plan. After you asked all your questions, there has been much discussion on allowing folks to speak their mind. There were many of our brave providers here 2 weeks ago. There's many here tonight. I've never once appeared at one of those tours. I've never once told anybody you're not free to speak your mind. On the contrary, there's people have said what I have said is inaccurate, and that's fine. I respect everybody's opinion. But the plan is to put CAD systems in our dispatch, put a records management system where we can do our operations effectively and efficiently. We have one of two ways to go. We can collaborate with the county and experience some reduced costs, or we can try to find the funding and do it in-house. That is what I'm trying to do.
I have a question on that matter.
Please.
We've heard many different figures as to what you would expect the upgraded technology to cost the city if we were to do it ourselves. We had heard numbers of $1 million and north of $1 million.
Exactly.
Was said, and then there are talked about there are upgrades that are approximately $160,000, and I don't know a great deal about this other than what I've had the honor of getting to see when I went on my tour. But there's got to be something that's that gap. There's got to be some explanation as to the difference between those two numbers that maybe you could shine some light on.
I can. Thank you for asking. One of the benefits of this discussion was I was asked, what do you think it's going to cost to upgrade that? And I said north of $1 million.
Okay.
We have discussed this with the chief and the captains for a long, long time. And I was always under the advisement that you need $1 million to $1.5 million. So after the last meeting, I got with Chief Connell. I said, we got to validate that. I'm not going to go up and just throw out a number if it's not real. And so show me that document. I'd asked the service director, I'd asked the chief of police, and I'd asked two of his four captains, did you hear that same number? Yes, we heard it too.
Okay.
We now believe it was just part of the discussions with our previous chief as opposed to a document. I said, that's great. If you don't have the document, then put something to writing. And I want to thank Mr. Guthrie for asking. I put out an email, hey, I want to answer all your questions. If you want something specific, we'll put it together. I want to know what those costs are. And I want to thank Chief Connell, Captain Baum, Captain Heron. They all got together and they put a number together that were $300,000 to $500,000 for a CAD system, or another $160 for the RMS system. Associated costs I can't anticipate, and that's if our computers, our displays would be able to use the technology. And I asked Chief Connell, I said, do you know that? We don't know that. So I can say tonight that we validated a number somewhere between 300 and 660, and a wild card being the computers.
Mr. Red.
What exactly is it that they'll be able to do with the upgraded system that they're unable to do now?
Computer-aided dispatch. We use a system now that is labor-intensive. If you've taken the tours, you can't help notice that how we're not supporting our people. There are much more effective ways of doing what they do. You've heard testimony tonight that they're juggling balls, a lot of them at once. This, I believe, presents an opportunity for human error, and I'm not saying our people have or would, but it gives me a little bit of pause. And I look out there what the technology is. I've seen what the county has been doing for the last 3 years, and they're building us out. So computer-aided dispatch takes away the writing it down in the card system, putting it in the slot. It's up on a computer screen. The records management system, all the wonderful things on the slide that we can track. The testimony I gave 2 weeks ago was crime statistics. Tell me who done what and where. There's been testimony tonight about what we're going on in the fire department. I'm not here to say anything is perfect, but we are light years ahead of where we were pre-1999 in fire and EMS. We know what emergencies are where, what time of the day, so on and so forth. The other thing is getting this information to the service level. So somebody in Heath goes to an incident and person says, next police officer shows up here, I'm going to kill him. Well, if you don't get that exchanged hand to hand, mouth to mouth at a shift change or across agencies, the next officer has no way of knowing what went on there. In that RMS system that we push it out to the ground level, and you've heard our friends in the county say, we're going to be there. That comes up on a screen. Hey, they made a threat there last night. Tread with caution. That's what we hope to do. That's what I believe that we can do with the county.
I'm not sure if this is the time to ask specifics yet, but there's a couple of questions that have come to me, and I haven't been sure how to answer them.
Please.
And one of them is, if someone calls in for a non-emergency police number, as things stand now, how that's handled, and when someone would call in for a non-emergency police number, how it would be handled after this change. And the second step of that, I've been asked, is if these folks are the only people in the police department 24 hours a day inside that office area, what would we do to be able to man that the lobby for the person? Would those doors still be open? Would there still be a way for someone to come in the middle of the night who needed help, who needed to be dealt with in the lobby of the police department? That's kind of a two-step, but they're two kind of detailed, pointed things if we're looking at any kind of a change.
So on the first question, who's going to answer the phone? The dispatchers of the county. We will route the call to a phone. They'll pick up the phone. How can we help you? The issue of letting people in and out of the building. Technology. We put a camera. Let me give you a perfect example, Mr. Chair. Division of Fire and EMS. We have them manned all the time, but many times they're out on a run. So I pull up. Nobody's here. What am I to do? You pick up the handset and it goes right to a dispatcher. At not going through every bulleted point that we watched in the presentation, there's not one thing that I didn't see that we could do as well or better by collaborating with the county. I'm unaware of, hey, this is something, I've met a lot with the command staff and the police department. Is this something that is going to adversely affect us? And I've not seen that, and I've watched very carefully. So that's two examples of where you pick up a phone and you call for help. If you hit the buzzer, we can open it remotely. We're not asking our dispatchers to go outside their console into the lobby and hold someone at bay. We're going to, hey, there's a deal going down this lobby. The buzzer's been pushed, the screen lights up, and we send a car. Or ask them what their emergency is.
I don't want to speak for anyone else sitting here, but from my point of view, the first two issues we have to deal with are the safety of our citizens and the safety of our officers. After we've gotten past that, then I think it's worth discussing financial savings, and it's worth discussing jobs that are filled right now by the city. But I think the first two issues are indeed safety, and I think that's the first two things that are on our minds as the initial priority, as a comparison of safety, what we have now and what we would have with the new system. And I think that to me, is the number one, number two.
The new system eliminates the redundancy. I have said publicly, the paper has quoted me, I am not a fan of the call goes here and gets pushed out over there. having the call taker in the same room with everybody else where they can turn around and hey, that kind of thing, and it goes to a CAD system instead of in a card. It lights up until you do something with it, I believe enhances safety for the citizens. And I've already testified with Mr. Rath, getting that information, pre-contact information to our officers, I believe enhances their safety. The other thing is that pains me as I watch how we overwork our officers. There is information comes in, your address, type of call, time dispatch, time leaving, time arriving. That's entered point of contact. And with the CAD system and RMS, we push it out to them. We don't ask them to have this redundancy of putting something into their laptop that somebody's already put into a laptop. So I do believe it meets both those concerns.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rath?
I know in the police department there's an interview room where officers could bring in an individual and hold them for a short period of time while they do other work. And I know that the dispatchers currently serve as a monitor of both the officer and the person being interviewed or detained. That goes towards safety of both the officer as well as the interviewee.
I agree.
Without the dispatchers in the police department, do we lose the functionality of that interview room and the ability for an officer to bring somebody back to the police department?
Absolutely not. Our dispatchers now are 50 feet and 2 doors away from those interview rooms. We monitor those with cameras. And that's the same thing we've been doing.
So that will continue to be monitored.
Absolutely.
But only that will be monitored down from the sheriff's office and not.
Absolutely. The things that we've seen tonight in the presentation, we can do. It's just a matter of technology. Wiring it to the right computer with the right notification. Whether it be open the door, monitor the computer, you've heard we monitor City Hall. It's still what we're doing, but we're consolidating how we do it.
May I ask a question of the chief?
Could I ask him one question? How about I step up? Then we'll go from there.
Well, thank you. Just had a quick question. Just wanted to get your input on this legislation in front of us, what your thoughts are.
I'm torn, and it's no argument that I look out and I have 8 dispatchers who have kept our dispatch center afloat single-handedly. As I said 2 weeks ago, our technology is the same as we had for the most part. Some of it is from 1990 when I hired as an officer. It is way behind the curve. We're not just a little behind the curve, we're way behind the curve. CAD's been in a lot of Central Ohio departments for 20 years now, and we're not there. How we get there is not for me to decide. So I do take it to heart because these are 8 people that I've worked with for up to 24 years. So it is a hard decision to make.
Thank you. If I could ask one more question. Mr. Grady, can I ask you another question? Thank you, Chief. If you could reiterate, and I believe you spoke to it at the last committee meeting, there obviously is a human side to this tonight with jobs affected. If this merger transition were to happen, how many dispatchers would the county look at hiring?
Well, that would actually come under the sheriff's office as well, since it's law enforcement. But the number that they're projecting at this point is 6.
6.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Mr. Rath?
I don't know who's going to answer this, but you guys made the statement that I think you said only 1 or 2 dispatchers would have a desire to go over to the county. And I guess my question is, what's up with the other 6 or 7? Why don't you want to go to the county to continue to do the same work that you're doing now?
If you would like to, yes.
There are several reasons that they aren't interested in going over there. One thing we've been told is actually there are no vacancies. There are no vacancies. I don't know where they're coming up with this or if it's a dream they have down the road, but there are no vacancies over there. These people are not, this is not saying we're going to take you guys, we think you're fantastic, we need you to get Newark through this, okay? We need your knowledge, we need your knowledge base, you need your interaction with the officers. They're not telling these people that. What they're being told is, or what we have been told actually, they will have to apply at the sheriff's office just like anybody else in this audience would. There's no assuming of these employees. That's one issue. Second issue, the county is under a completely different contract than we're under. Their rates are kind of similar. They have a different, I believe they paid 20% in their insurance. They don't have PERS pickup. They would have to start over as new employees. You have people that have been here 23, 25, 15 years. They're going to be at the bottom of the barrel. So let's just throw this out there. Say they did hire 6 people and they said, hey, you guys are great, we're going to take you. And 3 months down the road, hey, we can't afford you anymore. Who do you think's going? These dispatchers or theirs? Would you go over there and lose 25 years of seniority? I sure wouldn't. I would not do that. And there's several issues there, okay? They're not being promised jobs. They're being told they have to apply. They're being told there are none now. There are no openings. I don't know how many of you have been over there. There are no stations to even fit 6 people. There's one. And I would like to bring this up while I'm up here. I would like a commitment from Safety Director Spurgeon that any of these officers that are here or would like to come Monday are free to give their opinion as to how they are going to be personally affected. What's going to happen to them when they're out there and they lose these people. These people all work as a team. You're going to take a team and cut their arm off is what you're going to do. You heard Melissa say they work as a team. They have these people scheduled. And the way their scheduling is they work with a team of officers. So they're all together. They all work the same hours. These are my dispatchers, those are my guys. And you probably heard Missy say these are my officers because she's kind of possessive that way. But it's a team. And you're going to cut their arm off, basically. Okay? So there's another reason they don't want to go. They don't want to go. You might have 1 or 2, and that's because they're at the bottom of the barrel. They have nowhere to go. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Kind of, sort of. Along with a whole lot of other stuff.
Well, I'm sure you didn't want to hear it, but I'm sorry. I'm just going to tell you that's...
I want to hear it, but I also heard that there is going to be positions there. There's no positions now. They are creating positions. They're adding on workforce. They're going to add on individuals.
Where's their promise to the city of Newark for that? Is it in writing somewhere?
Haven't seen a contract? Don't know.
No, that's the problem. None of us have seen what they're going to negotiate.
But they're also assuming that there's not going to be anything, and they're saying they don't want to go. My question was directed to the dispatchers. Why don't you want to go? I didn't say if there's jobs. If there's no jobs there, then obviously they don't want to go because there's no job to go to. I understand that. But if there are jobs available, and of course they have to apply because that's standard operating procedure. It's a government agency. They can't pull strings.
Not in the negotiations, sir. Negotiations are
so if they want to go over there and there's jobs, if there's an opportunity to go over there and there's jobs available, would you or would you not want to make that move, and why?
I think I answered that. I'm their union representative. I think I answered that to you.
Okay.
If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
This is addressed both to the safety man and to the county. The federal government has required the implementation of something called Enhanced 911. Enhanced 911 was due to be implemented in the state of Ohio last year. When I checked with Homeland Security this week, no county in this state has effectively implemented Enhanced 911. That's the ability of them to basically know where a call comes from to within approximately 6 feet. Since the county hasn't implemented this yet, the city hasn't implemented it, they're technically both in violation of federal law. Now, Problem is here we are dissolving a system that at least works. They may not have enhanced 911, but at least they have an idea where the offices are and everything else. And you're going to swap it into a system that is not even close to being ready with its own enhanced 911 considerations. Seems like another problem. Now, I'm sure the county has a plan to implement enhanced 911. After all, they were required to do that to continue to receive federal funding. And what I want to know is, why does the city want to go with a system that is not functional? Your turn.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to address the gentleman's concerns. D-Block funding is a broadband public safety access network that has the next gen where they can track a cell phone. You call them a cell phone, we can't track it yet. It comes from the federal government. The funding is coming from the federal government. It is just now reaching the state level. I sit on a committee called Ohio FirstNet. There's a website. Please go Google it. But they're talking about who is going to have the infrastructure to get these federal dollars first. And we are absolutely in compliance with federal regulations, and I'd absolutely want that to come here, which is why I go to these meetings in Columbus and participate. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Oh, go ahead.
Is there anyone from the county system that would want to address what Safety Director Spurgeon just? Would you be willing to do that, please? Thank you.
And what Director Spurgeon said is correct. We are working towards Next Gen 911 within the county right now. Everything that we are doing is towards accreditation for the 911 center, which would also mean Next Gen 911.
And what is the time frame of that? What are we looking at? Can that be projected, or what?
I don't have a specific date on that yet, but we're probably looking at tail end of this year, beginning of next year, by the time that's fully implemented.
I see. Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Rath?
Before you leave, how many other 911 dispatch centers in the state of Ohio are accredited at this point in time?
I actually don't know that off the top of my head.
I
can get that information to you.
Is this something that's new? Is this something that's been around for a long time?
There's a lot of these smaller PSAPs that have been rolled throughout the county into these regional 911 centers, and this is not just the state of Ohio. This is also nationwide. So you see everything from a regional 911 center like what we have here. Some of those have now reached accreditation. Some of those are in the process, like we are. And as you look at other jurisdictions being rolled into these regional centers, this is like what we're going through here right now. So
I'm just wondering if you're ahead of the curve, on the curve, or behind the curve.
I think we're ahead of the curve. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to weigh in as well. We are ahead of the curve. If you can think about a competition for federal dollars, that's what we're in right now. And we have a meeting in June. It's on my calendar. I can tell you the exact date. Where executive stakeholders from the FirstNet committee, and we're public, private, all kinds of folks are represented there, are going to make a pitch. And we're all day long at the State Highway Patrol's main headquarters on why Ohio deserves that money first. I think we're ahead of the curve. I think we're probably competing with 4 to 6 others. But it is a presentation. It is a process. But I tell you, that's what we want here. It is a dedicated access for our safety providers, and we will be able to locate you on your cell phone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Wood, I want to ask, in the PowerPoint presentation, it said that Ashley City instead developed a regional dispatch center, and that goes along with what the comments were from Director Spurgeon and Director Grady. Could Director Grady come forward and talk a little bit about what is the goal to reach the regional dispatch center for Licking County, and are there conversations with other jurisdictions to join into yours? I mean, deciding on what Newark does, what's the plan to get other jurisdictions into this regional? I guess I'd like to hear more comment about this regional.
We already have all of the fire districts within the county currently in the regional 911 center. So the only thing that's left to do is to bring in the law enforcement dispatching, if that's what's decided by those individual jurisdictions. So that's really, build it and they will come type of a mentality. It's been built. We're constantly working towards improving it, and that's both on our side and on the sheriff's side. So, there have been a few other jurisdictions that have expressed interest, and those negotiations will go forward.
Here in Licking County,
in Licking County,
expressed?
Yes.
As we speak right now, you're not serving any other jurisdictions as it stands right now?
All the fire jurisdictions are currently in the 911, so the only ones that are left that have PSAPs of their own are some law enforcement, like Granville, Utica, Johnstown, yourself.
So you're not serving any of them right now?
No, we transfer those calls back.
And the sheriff's department came on board with you when, sir?
What was that? April this past year? Before I got here.
I see. I don't know if if this is fair. What's your assessment of how that has gone? Where would you view?
Well, you have to understand, my measuring stick is, for the most part, since I've been here, prior to that was in Massachusetts. I think we're way ahead of the curve, as far as that's concerned. The partnership that we've been able to build between ourselves, between our side of the fence and the sheriff's office, has been phenomenal since I've gotten here. We're working towards the same goal, which is always what you want. Because we have two sets of dispatchers working under the same roof.
And do you have stations? Do you have room for this expansion?
Absolutely.
Are there plans to expand to be able to hire additional dispatchers? I'm hearing there are. I'm hearing there aren't. They're going to hire. They're not going to hire.
It all depends on call volume. If the call volume is there, if this deal would go to the point where Newark is coming on board, then the call volume is projected to be there to hire up to six dispatchers on the sheriff's side. Nothing's going to change on the fire side. We're going to continue to do exactly what we're doing last week as we will do next week. And it's hiring dispatchers within the 911 center on our side of the fence is all based on that volume.
And can I also assume if you're going to hire dispatchers, there surely has to be some sort of requirement, some sort of training
Absolutely.
For them to come on board. Wouldn't there be a tendency to want to look at people who have that experience and have that background and are ready to, day one sit down and start and go,
Absolutely.
As opposed to someone who does not have any kind of background?
Yeah, you're looking at a learning curve before they could operate by themselves of up to 6 months if they were coming in without any 911 experience at all. Bringing somebody in that has 911 experience shortens that curve quite a bit. Then it's just a question of learning the systems.
So is there any sort of, what would the requirements be to be hired?
I'll have to throw that back to the sheriff's office because their requirements are a little bit different than ours.
Is there someone here that can address that?
Captain Bill.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Requirements? That's what you ask, requirements?
Well, I'm asking, when you're going to hire a new dispatcher, there surely has to be a specific list of requirements for that person to be considered.
Right. We gear off of a multitask test they take, which they implement that for our present dispatchers also. And then you just go through an interview process. Prior experience always sets you above. I don't know what else you're asking for.
I was just asking what specific requirements there are to be hired. I mean, is there a certain level of education? Is there any sort of experience requirement?
Just a high school diploma, education-wise. Scoring would be off of that multitask test. That's for any dispatcher, whether you're law enforcement or fire. Everybody takes it for the 911 center. And then the training is the same for everybody also.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. Anyone else?
Well, thank you. We'll offer a few more comments, and I'm going to entertain a motion. first talk about the safety. The chief said tonight, we're behind the curve on technology, and that's a fear for me. I look at the cost, and we have to, if you go back 5 or 6 months now, to balance the general fund budget, it's no secret, we took 2 insurance premium holidays. That's how it was balanced. If not, there would have been layoffs. And keep in mind, as this council body, as we sit up here, the administration does have the authority to lay off. It doesn't come through council. And we're not going to have those insurance premium holidays. So we have to start looking for savings. So, I appreciate that, you guys looking at that, because we have to. It's very tight. Not only with that, with the capital improvements that would be needed for that $300,000 to $600,000, that's a fear also where that's coming from, because that takes away from other capital improvements. There's a human side to it. I don't think any of us sitting up here tonight, this isn't our favorite legislation to discuss. There's many great people that are affected here, and the ability, or the fact that Mr. Grady said that 6 jobs could be offered, along with the collective bargaining process that occurs with bumping. There's options now, so that makes me feel better in entertaining a motion to pass this on to the full council. So, with that, I will offer a motion to pass this on.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bubb, second by Mr. Rath.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Roletta?
Yeah, if I could, first of all, I'd just like to thank everyone for their comments and also for the presentation. I think a lot of good points were made. I'd also like to thank Chief Connell for the tour, and I'd like to thank our dispatchers for allowing us to watch the great work that they do. Mr. Chair, it's my understanding that the original language of 15-35 would not only give the administration the ability to begin negotiations, but also to enter into a contract agreement with the county. I am introducing an amendment to this resolution to require that before any negotiated contract is entered into, it must first be approved by council. So with that, I make a motion that we amend Resolution 1535 to 1535A.
Second.
Amendment by Mr. Roletta, second by Mr. Blake. Is that correct?
Yes.
We all in favor?
No discussion on that, or there is, or no discussion?
Is there more discussion on the amendment that's just been presented by the committee?
Yeah, I have a comment. I guess you can see where you're coming from, Alex. What I do fear is we're running a narrow line of setting a dangerous precedence here of doing administrative duties. We're the legislative body. We're not the administration. I would maybe ask you, Caroline, what's kind of your opinion on this? Or would we running too narrow of a line on this? Or, this is kind of, I don't know, it kind of fears me for later on if every time that there's a disagreement with an employee that doesn't like this or whatever, are we always going to, want to negotiate Roger Loomis's contracts or have to approve all this? That fears me a little bit. So could I maybe get some input from you?
Sure. Well, first of all, there's a lot of contracts that are done every single day without going through council. I mean, I look over contracts. Yeah, all the time. So I don't know that that's necessarily a concern. And as far as giving an opinion, that's not really my place to give. I think what Alex is trying to do is create another safeguard so that there's another step if we want to see what happens after the negotiations occur and then take it back to council. And if you guys aren't interested in what the negotiations were, there's another safeguard to shoot it down at that point.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say that our city charter clearly states the duties of council are to fix the number of officers and employees in the various city departments and divisions and create, combine, change, or abolish departments and divisions. Therefore, I think it's appropriate that we as a council consider any negotiated contract before it is entered into in this case.
Just throw out, though, Alex, that this isn't an abolishment. This is a layoff. And that's, am I correct in saying that? That's two different things than what you just stated with the charter, just for clarification.
Same thing in the contract.
I think I want to add a couple comments as well. Whether this is considered layoffs or considered abolishment, I think from what we've sat and listened to here tonight, there are a lot of concerns, and I think those concerns are legitimate. We do have concerns about safety. We do have concerns about jobs. There are human factors to this. I think there's a lot of things that we're not totally clear on as far as details, and that's the sort of thing that I would assume and I would expect to be negotiated. And once that negotiation is done, I do think we need to take another look at it and see if we can approve it. I think we need to make sure that we're doing this as a team, that we're doing this with the cooperation of not only the administration and the person doing the negotiation, but that we're doing this with the Newark City Council as well. We all need to be involved in this and to be sure that we're making the right decision for this city when it comes to safety. Number one, safety of the citizens, safety of the officers, and getting to details of jobs and finance and savings. I think we've got to be sure, and I think we should be entitled to have that final opinion. Other comments, Mr. Rath?
Yeah, I'm all for making sure we have all our ducks in a row and all the information we need to make a decision on this. And as many of you know, there's been many times where I've tried to bring things to the table and then table them for a period of time, so we had more time to get more information. And I can tell you that there's never been a time where something has been requested to be tabled where I have not agreed upon that. Because I think we all need to have as much time as we feel we need to make a decision. I think that we can get all the information we need on this and let it go through its due course. We have another 3 weeks before we actually have a final vote on this. And if we're not ready in 3 weeks to have a final vote on this, then we can certainly table it at that point in time to get more information. But I think I agree with Mr. Bubb here that I think we're crossing a line between going from legislative body to an administrative body, and I don't want to take on the administrative responsibilities. I don't want to take away the administrative responsibilities of our administration. That's their job. That's what they do. So I'd be in favor of tabling if you feel like you need more time, but I'm not in favor of tying the hands of the administration. So I'm not going to vote for the amendment.
I just add one other item. Ultimately, we approved the funding for the contracts or anything. So, ultimately, we do have the say. So just wanted to.
You're right. That's the purpose of the funding.
Mr. Blake,
Mr. Chair, I first want to say, first a few thank yous, because I did have the opportunity to go down to the Newark Police Department and to sit with this nice young lady and see what she goes through. I was only there for about 90 minutes, and so my head was swollen when I left you, but I had to get back to work myself. And I also want to thank Mr. Grady, because I did go take a tour of the 911 center, and so I did get to experience both locations. I think the interesting thing about our position right here is that as a council, we have a duty to the citizens to provide a service. We have a duty to the citizens to watch the Treasury. There's a lot riding on just this resolution right now, and so there's a lot of concerns, a lot of discussion, a lot that goes into this. I most definitely and I went back and forth. I've had conversations with Director Rose, I've had conversations with Director Spurgeon about what's the best path to proceed with this. First of all, we have to give them authority to negotiate something. So we can't just table it, because they have even said in conversations with me, well, I don't have the authority to negotiate anything. So first of all, in order to get those, what does a call mean? What does all these little details that people have been talking about, what does all this mean? Well, they need to negotiate that with Director Grady and get all that stuff ironed out before we even have an idea of how to answer some of these questions. They're talking about, well, okay, they're not posting jobs because they don't even know if there's anything negotiated there. Everything we've been talking about has been, sort of sidebar conversations and just generalized. Nothing is specified at all. And so I guess I look at it as, do we want to, what currently was before us and presented is sort of a fast-tracked method. We approve the negotiating authority, and we also approve the ability to enter into a contract. I guess I am in favor of slowing things down and saying, let's go ahead and let them negotiate, but bring it back. We want to look at it before we actually go and do this next step. And I think that's a reasonable request. Considering that we've been discussing this for the last almost 3 hours, and considering all the conversations that have happened outside of this room, we're talking about 8 employees, and we're talking about services that are provided to the entire police department. And this is, as all of us can agree, this is a major issue. And so I have no qualms about saying that, go ahead and negotiate, but when you've negotiated, bring it back and let's take a look. So I think that's all we're requesting. I think that's all it is. And so I'm urging support of the amendment, and I proceed with that. Now, I do have a question for Madam Law Director, and you got me on the last time, but this time I don't know. In the title of Mr. Roletta's amendment, if you read that, now it says to negotiate and enter into contract right at the top of his. Do we need to strike that language?
We do. I apologize for that. That was my oversight.
So I got it right this time.
You got
okay.
All
right. Okay. So we need to. Because I saw you got it corrected in the section 2 and in section 1 on the back.
Yes. Yep.
But we need to correct that.
That is correct.
All right.
To clear up another matter, well, Mr. Blake, the spelling on your sheet is different than the spelling on her sheet.
Okay.
We looked at both of them.
Okay.
So the council thing, and I looked at mine too. So
yeah, I read everything they give me, so I just, they should know that by now. I even read them big Brian Moorhead reports, those 500-page ones. So, that should tell you something,
I always ask Mr. Blake about those reports.
So I do read it.
I think something that needs to be stated here, and again, this is coming from me. What we're asking for is to look at the details when the negotiation is done. What we're not doing is questioning or showing any sort of a lack of trust to the person that's negotiating, to the administration in any way whatsoever. We're just wanting to see the hard facts on a piece of paper so that we're not, as Mr. Blake was saying, juggling terms around. We need to see the bottom line of what's going to be done, how it's going to be done, how we're going to serve the citizens, and what it's going to cost. We've just got to have it in hard numbers and in words on paper, so we can look at it and make an educated decision. This is an important issue. This does affect every citizen in Newark, and it's very hard for me to sit and listen to somebody tell me that we're doing this and that we don't care, or that we're not concerned about the citizens in Newark, or that we're willing to give up a police department, or we're willing to give up a fire department. I think that's out of line. I don't think you're going to have more people sitting here that care about the city of Newark than the ones that are seated here or the ones that are seated out there. I think everyone's in this because we all truly care about the citizens of Newark and how they're being served and their safety as a whole. Thank you.
I would just, if I could just have one final comment. Again, just get back to the amendment. I'm not going to support the amendment. That's not out of disrespect for legislation. I just don't want to go down that road in terms of acting like the administration. It doesn't have anything to do with the body of that. So, thank you.
Now, I have a question for you. How do we do an individual vote on this amendment? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
And we have the correct title.
Chairperson Cost, I really want to say something. I know you're getting ready to vote, but I think there's something that I would like to say that has come from many people here, and it's no offense to Ryan, but his father is a county commissioner, and so I would like to see if we have a voluntary abstention from vote from him.
mean, I think we do a lot of things with the county. I think that's totally your call. But I think we do a lot of different items with the county, so that would be up to you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I will continue to vote on it as I've done with other votes with the county. So.
Other questions before we go on to the vote? Okay, I'm just gonna start down the row. Mr. Blake?
So this is for the amended.
For the amended version, yes.
Yes.
Mr. Blake? Yes. Mr. Rath?
No.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
Mr. Bubb?
No.
And I will vote in favor of this. The amended version is approved 3-2, and it will go on to full council.
No, it will not.
It will not?
You have to vote on it.
Until we vote on it.
It's amended now. You have to actually
We vote on it.
Okay, let's vote on the amended version. All in favor of the amended version, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Goes on to full council. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Mr. Guthrie?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just have, because I think there's an unanswered question, and it has to do with my comment, Mr. Spurgeon. I thought maybe you might want to hear this. Regarding whether law enforcement officers should have the right on this issue to come before council and express their concerns one way or the other about the safety aspects of this proposal. I know what Mr. Spurgeon said. I know what our emails exchanges have said, but I haven't heard anything explicit that there is no problem with law enforcement officers coming to this podium and stating how they feel one way or the other about this proposal from a safety perspective. Bill, do you want to say that you don't object to officers coming in here?
I'll respond to you. It's my turn.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I've heard this 3 times now. I'd ask everybody, there are many police officers here who have had many opportunities to speak. I'm just not going to dignify this continual pecking that I'm somehow holding them back. They are here. They have had every opportunity. I have not debated anybody's point of view. There's simply no word or deed that I'm aware of that would make anybody feel that they don't have a right to speak freely. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any of the police officers that would like to speak on behalf of this? They're here. Feel free. We certainly have no objection.
Darren Logan, 413 Sherwood Drive, West Newark, Ohio. I'm going to disagree with the safety director on this because we have a union and we elect within the city of the police department an officers coordinator. He's the liaison between the union and the city. He has the authorization to speak. The rest of us are not permitted to speak about matters at the police department.
Who is the union rep?
Dave Warren.
He just asked
if you'd like to speak.
I just wanted him to say who it was. Loud and clear.
You certainly can feel free to speak if you'd like.
First, I'd just like to thank council for taking your time on this. The positions are funded throughout the end of the year. There's no sense of rushing into this with no facts. The city has not provided one fact to this. It's all, we just want to show you. We just want to do this. When they have talked about this, come on now. It's ridiculous to think that they haven't talked about this. I am the only person that's authorized to go between the city. If the safety director wants it to open up and let the officers know that they can show up to council next week and talk, then great. We'll do that.
Can I ask you a direct question?
Sure.
If we make this move, will it increase or decrease the safety of our police officers? First question. In your opinion.
In my opinion.
Let me ask both questions.
Okay.
Second question is, if we make this move, will it increase or decrease the safety of our citizens?
In my opinion, yes, because you're now piling...
I didn't ask you a yes or no question, so I don't understand your answer. I said, will it increase or decrease the
I answered that. I said yes. It will decrease.
I said, will it increase or decrease?
Yes, it will, and I'm going to explain. Can I explain? Okay. I believe it will decrease because you're piling all of our work onto the county. They have shown with the fire contract they will not dedicate a sole dispatcher to our city. These are facts. This is what they do. And yet we're getting ready to trade in the car just because it needs an oil change. Doesn't make any sense. Let's find other avenues to fix these problems we have with technology. The police department has given back the city money at the end of the year through unspent budget items back to the city. We have unfunded positions right now. Since this administration took over, I would say every year there's an unfunded position. Many unfunded positions. There's money. He says there's a $100,000 cost savings. We've had how many positions unfunded since the beginning of the year? Council approved 71 officers. We've been at 69 the entire year, except for 5 days. We're at 70.
Do you mean to say funded positions that are unfilled?
Correct. So, anything else?
Is there anything else that you want to add, sir?
I guess our dispatch center is accredited through CLIA. So, I know there are some questions about accreditations.
Mr. Rollo, did you have a question?
No.
All right. I'm not sure who to address this question to. How soon these negotiations would start, and any concept of a time frame before we would see anything back to us? Again, I'm not asking for a rush either. I'm just asking some...
Mr. Chair, I don't want to commit to a time frame right now. I've listened very, very carefully. There are a number of concerns that folks have intimated that they want addressed in a contract, and whether I can do that or not, it's going to take some time. So I don't want to paint myself X number of weeks. I just don't know. We will start as soon as it's practical to so do. I get everybody in a room and we'll go.
So that would be fairly soon to start.
If we're giving permission to do that, absolutely. But I don't, the duration...
Okay, I just didn't know if you had anything. Mr. Rapp.
I would encourage you to hear Mr. Arndt, our Officer Arndt. The biggest concern that he expressed that I heard was that we need dedicated dispatchers in the county system for the city of Newark. I would imagine that would be a negotiated line item.
My public
response. Saying whether you can negotiate or not, but I would say we could work towards that.
My public response, Mr. Rath, is there is many tenets of the agreement with the county from 1999 that I would not have negotiated. But I don't think any of them is adversely affecting safety. I think it is not equitable financially.
Other questions? Your motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Committee's adjourned. Thank you. Thanks to everybody for coming.